I think we'll give everybody a couple minutes to join here and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started now. It's a couple minutes after, so I'm sure people will continue to trickle in. But good afternoon, and thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Marissa Davenport, and I am the co-chair of the Education and Outreach Committee of the Women in Mining Arizona chapter. I'd like to extend a warm welcome and express our gratitude for you guys for your participation today. We are going to be talking about Florence Copper, America's next green copper producer, with the esteemed Sophie Dessart. Very exciting. So, Florence Copper is an in situ copper recovery ISCR project located midway between Phoenix and Tucson in the community of Florence, Arizona. They are setting a new standard for conservation and environmental protection in copper mining. Florence Copper will produce LME grade A copper metal on site with unmatched energy, water, and GHG conservation. Florence Copper is currently constructing a commercial production facility, which will expand the project's smaller scale production test facility. The first copper cathode produced from the commercial facility is expected at the end of 2025. So let's learn more about Florence Copper, its innovative proven ISCR process, and its construction program in the upcoming presentation we have, which will be presented by Sophie Dessart. We will have time for questions at the end, so please put those in the chat. And before we get started, I just wanted to go over a brief introduction of the Women in Mining organization and why we're hosting these talks. So the Women in Mining Arizona chapter, or WIM Arizona, is a nonprofit organization with 5 objectives. And one of those objectives is to educate our members and the public on technology, economic, regulatory, or other mining related topics. These monthly DigIN webinars are one of the ways that we like to do this to meet this commitment. And if you have any ideas or topics that you're interested in or that you're willing to speak on, please feel free to reach out. We're always looking for new ways to educate others. So we are excited. Also, we're excited to announce the opportunity for you to get involved and make a difference in our communities. If you're passionate about outreach and eager to give back, we would love to have you join our Education Outreach Committee. Our team meets bi-weekly to coordinate and implement outreach efforts, and we're always looking for enthusiastic members to help us and expand our impact. Whether you have a knack for teaching or organizing events, or you simply just want to contribute your time or energy, this is the place for you. So please see that you can reach out to us via email or LinkedIn or contact us directly. Either way, we're here for you. And also, we would like to thank our sponsors. Our Women in Mining Arizona founding sponsor is Freeport McMoran, and our diamond sponsor is South 32. We're able to operate at the capacity that we do because of these generous partnerships with our sponsors. So thank you very much. We genuinely appreciate what you do for us. So now I get to introduce our speaker for today. Sophie Dessart is the Manager of Communications and Public Affairs for Florence Copper. In her role, Sophie leads Florence Copper's community and media relations, charitable initiatives, and communication strategy. She also serves as president of the Florence Copper Community Foundation. She holds a master's degree in of global management with a focus in global affairs and global business from the Thunderbird School of Global Management. She serves as vice chair of the Arizona Mining Association Communications Committee and Education Subcommittee, and was a part of the inaugural class of the American Exploration and Mining Association Society Leadership Program. A proud resident of Florence and passionate community volunteer, Sophie represents the business community on First Things First Pinal Regional Partnership Council and serves on several regional boards, including Central Arizona College Foundation, Pinal Alliance for Economic Growth, United Way of Pinal County, Pinal County Historical Society, and the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce. Sophie's work has been recognized with honors such as being named an Arizona Forward Emerging Sustainability Leader in 2022, Arizona Mining Association Rising Star in 2023, and a Flynn Brown Fellow in 2025. So she's got quite the accolades. She's a very busy girl. So please take it away, Sophie.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for that very kind introduction, and good afternoon to everyone. So excited to have you all here and to share more about Florence Copper. So to start out, I am going to be sharing my screen here. And so we're going to share that and move into presentation mode. I believe I have to hit a, there we go. I think everyone can see me okay, right? All right, fantastic. So as was stated, my name is Sophie Dessart. I'm the Manager of Communications and Public Affairs at Florence Copper, and I'm so incredibly excited to share more about Florence Copper with you today. So starting out, I do have to just flash this on the screen. Basically, don't take anything that I say as stock advice, pretty standard. Again, I work in communications and public affairs and not finance for a reason, so really don't want to take anything that I say as stock advice. So starting out, what exactly are we going to be talking about today? Well, I'm going to start off with a bit of an overview of Florence Copper, our history as a project. Then I'm going to talk about the very unique process that we use to produce copper at Florence Copper, which we call in situ copper recovery. In very simple terms, and I'll get more into details later on in the presentation, we extract copper from the ground in liquid form through a series of wells. We send that liquid copper-rich solution to a plant, and then we plate it into solid form once again using electricity, creating an LME grade A copper cathode. And I'll get more into how that process works later on in the presentation. I'm then going to give an update on our construction program because we currently are under construction and expanding at Florence Copper. And then I'll round out the presentation with the opportunity to talk about our socioeconomic benefits to our community and to the state of Arizona and the nation as a whole. At any time during the presentation, I know we have the chat function enabled or the question and answer function enabled, so feel free to drop questions in the chat and I will be happy to answer any questions at the end of this presentation. So starting out with a general overview of Florence Copper, this is actually a picture of our site and our well field on our slide. So starting out, just some background about our project. You might have heard the word Taseko somehow associated with Florence Copper and wondered what exactly is Taseko, how are they related? Taseko is actually our parent company. We are 100% owned by them. They are based out of Vancouver, Canada, and they run Gibraltar, the second largest open pit copper mine in Canada. Florence Copper is their only US project to date, and they're very excited to see us get up and running into commercial operations as we're in process right now. As I mentioned, we are an in situ copper recovery project, and we do have a very rich history on our site, as I'll get to later in this presentation. Over 135 million was spent and invested in this project by former owners. And with speaking to our location, we are located in the town of Florence in Pinal County, midway between Tucson and Phoenix. And you can see the little star on the map on the presentation shows where exactly we are located. Moving in a little bit more to our location, just to situate where exactly we're talking about. The Florence Copper site is located outlined in orange on this slide right here. And this can show you where we are in relationship to the downtown historic town of Florence, and then also to a very large master planned community in the Florence area, the Anthem at Merrill Ranch master planned community. And because of the very unique nature of our process and the fact that we have a very small environmental footprint, we are able to be located very close to residential centers and to the downtown area. In fact, I personally live 11 minutes from our site in Florence. So speaking to the mining industry, that's a pretty good commute, I'm sure we can all say. And aside from that, do like to highlight there are a lot of aggregate operations in our area as well. So mining is well known by the community, but sometimes we do get confused. So if you've ever driven in Florence and you've seen Poston Butte Mountain, a big mountain with the F on it, we're actually right across the street from that mountain. Zooming in on our site, our property outline is in green on this slide. We have just over 1,300 acres on the Florence Copper site. That is a combination of state and private land. And in blue, I do like to outline the resource block because that, of course, is where our copper is located. And you can see that we know very well where exactly our copper is located on our site. And that really does speak to the very long history that we have on the Florence Copper site, as I'll talk about a little bit right here. So one common question that we do get at Florence Copper is, when exactly did you discover copper on the Florence Copper site? And the answer is actually 1969. Legend has it there was a geologist from Asarco. They were doing exploration in the area, and they actually saw evidence of a copper deposit on the mountain across the street from our property, Poston Butte Mountain. When they did additional exploration, they found the deposit on our site. Now, in the 1970s, Conoco actually looked at mining this property using traditional mining methods. So they constructed two 700-foot shafts on the property, and they realized that we have very unique hydrogeologic conditions in Florence that don't lend themselves well to a traditional mining method like an open pit or an underground mine. And so with that, they were not able to move forward with that method of mining development. Now, interestingly enough, if they had, they would have actually completely taken out the mountain across the street from our property, and the big master planned Anthem at Merrill Ranch community that I referenced earlier on in this presentation, that would be tailings right now. So it would look like a very different Florence. But they realized, you know what, very unique hydrogeologic conditions, weren't able to move forward with that method of developing the mine. Now, in the late 90s, they actually looked at the potential for the in situ copper recovery process on our site. BHP Copper did a pilot test. They had 67 wells. They proved the safety and effectiveness of the environmental responsibility of the in situ copper recovery process. They were all set to move forward, but I'm sure many on this call can remember 2000 hit, price of copper took a nosedive, BHP pulled out. They deferred mining operations, and this land was actually sold to the same developer that developed that large master planned community. Now, 2008 and 2009 hit, not great years for the housing market with the bubble and the crash. The housing developer actually went bankrupt. This land was sold at auction and sold to Curious Resources, who started putting in place the members of the team who would bring us to where we are today. In 2014, Curious was acquired by Taseko. And that really brings us to where we are today at Florence Copper. And we like to say that Florence Copper is a proven success. And the reason that we say that is where exactly we are located in our project operations. We are currently finishing up a successful, what we call production test facility. Basically, we did a smaller scale version of the operation that we will do in commercial operations. And we really did that to prove once again the safety, the effectiveness, the environmental responsibility of the in situ copper recovery process. And we've done that. We've actually produced over 1 million pounds of copper right on our site in Florence. And this photo that you see on the slide is the first copper that rolled off the line in 2019. And so that kind of brings us to us today. So we really did develop this project in two phases. Phase one was that successful production test facility producing over 1 million pounds of copper. And phase two is where we're at now. So we received our final major federal permit to expand into commercial operations in 2023 in the fall. And that really started our construction program. And so we are currently at the point where we are wrapping up our construction program and actually getting ready to move into commissioning. And we are expecting our first copper cathode. I see the little hands celebrating. Thank you. We're very excited as well. So with regards to that, we are now at the point where we are expecting our first copper cathode from our commercial facilities around the end of this year. And during commercial operations, we will have an average annual production capacity of 85 million pounds of copper per year for 22 years. So we're incredibly excited to represent this new domestic source of copper for our nation. So obviously we are virtual. So unfortunately, I can't pull out a big box of core samples for you all in person, but I do have a photo on the slide of some of our core samples. And if you'll notice, it's all highly fractured and broken up. And we didn't do that purposely. When we take a core sample and we stick it in the box, it just really shatters on us. If I had a big box of core in front of me, I could actually pick up a piece and I could just crumble it in my hands. And it's not that I'm the Incredible Hulk or anything like that. It just speaks to the very unique nature of our deposit. We have what geologists call a highly fractured, highly saturated, and highly porous deposit. Those very unique hydrogeologic conditions don't lend themselves well to a traditional mining method like an open pit or an underground mine. They lend themselves exceptionally well to the in situ copper recovery process. And really, we have had geologists come and study this deposit because it is so unique and lends itself so exceptionally well to the process we use at Florence Copper. So I've said it a lot, and I'm sure some on this call are familiar with the in situ copper recovery process. But for those who are not, what exactly is in situ copper recovery? How exactly does that process work? Well, I first do like to always have everyone envision what they think of when they think of a copper mine in their heads. Let's get that picture in our head for a second. This is basically what our site looks like from the ground up. I promise it's even less impressive in person. If you actually go out and see our site, it basically looks like an empty field with a couple pieces of equipment sticking out of the ground. And definitely very different than a traditional open pit or underground mine. And that does bring a lot of benefits in the sense that we aren't doing any large scale blasting. We aren't hauling millions of pounds of rock. There's no crushing. There's no major earth movers, no haul trucks, none of that traditional mining activity. And as a result, we actually do emit significantly less dust and less carbon compared to a traditional mining operation. We also use significantly less energy and less water. I'll explain why on the water side a little bit later on in this presentation. We will actually be the lowest greenhouse gas and energy intensive copper producer in all of North America and one of the lowest in the world during commercial operations. We also do, as I mentioned, have a very, very small footprint on our site. We don't even need to use all those over 1,300 acres that we have on our site. And speaking to when we end our project, this is probably my favorite benefit. We're able to pull up those wells that you see here on this slide, all of this equipment, and cap them. And we are able to redevelop this land. It really looks like how it was when we started. So we can redevelop it into housing, into agriculture, really whatever the community priorities are at that time. And so with that, we're able to get this copper that we need for our everyday lives, this critical mineral. And at the same time, when we're done, we're able to reuse the land. And all of these benefits actually led us to be finalists for 2 environmental awards from Arizona Forward in 2022. So how exactly does this process work? So we drill down into the copper oxide zone, which is about 400 to 1,200 feet below ground. And we drill what we would call an injection well into that copper oxide zone. Into that injection well, we travel a lightly acidic solution. It's similar in acidity to a common household vinegar. And that lightly acidic solution actually dissolves the copper in the rock into liquid form. It becomes a part of that solution. And then we pull that liquid copper-rich solution back above ground for processing through a series of recovery wells. Basically, they work the exact opposite as an injection well. Speaking a little bit more to that process, if you've ever rolled a dice and you roll a 5 and you have that dot in the center and the 4 dots surrounding it, that dot in the center, that is your injection well. The 4 dots surrounding it are your recovery wells. You'll notice this is a diagram of our production test facility well field. And you'll notice on this diagram that we have more recovery wells than we do injection wells. And that is actually a very important part of our process at Florence Copper. We are pulling out slightly more of that liquid copper-rich solution than we are putting in. The reason that we do that is that creates what is called a cone of depression and hydraulic control. In very simple terms, it creates a closed loop system where we always have 100% control of that liquid copper-rich solution. Aside from the injection and recovery wells shown on this diagram, you'll notice that we have what are called sampling wells and observation wells. Sampling wells were just part of our production test facility. Those will go away during commercial operations, but those observation wells will stay. Those allow us just to sample at every level, make sure the process is working correctly. We also do have ringing the well field, not shown on this diagram, but ringing the well field, what are called point of compliance wells. Those are sampled on a quarterly basis, and that data goes directly to regulators. No, that's a lot of information. I hope we're all good. I'm seeing some smiles, so I'm hoping that means we're all on the same page. So speaking to the process a little more, we're in our in situ recovery area or our well field. So we've pulled this liquid copper-rich solution back above ground through those wells. Where exactly does it go from there? We send that liquid copper-rich solution in an above-ground pipeline to our solvent extraction and electrowinning or SXEW plant. Once it gets there, we add an organic to it. It goes through a series of agitators and into these cells that I like to call bathtubs because I think they look like giant bathtubs. And over the course of 7 days, we actually use electricity to pull the copper molecules from the solution and plate it onto a steel anode sheet, almost like plating chrome on the bumper of a car. After those 7 days are up, you have your fully formed copper cathode sheet. We're able to pull those steel anode sheets out. We strip the copper cathode off of it. Those get recycled back into the process. And we have our final product at Florence Copper, which is our LME grade A copper cathode sheet. Now, I did mention when I was talking about the environmental benefits of the in situ copper recovery process, the water savings associated with it. And so one question I do commonly get is, okay, you've pulled the copper molecules from that copper dissolving solution. Where does that solution go from there? And the answer is we're actually able to recycle it back into our process. And because that solution is mostly water-based, we're actually recycling the majority of the water that we use at Florence Copper. Aside from that, the only other part of this diagram that I didn't specifically talk about is this evaporation pond right here. And so as I mentioned, because we are pulling out slightly more of that liquid copper rich solution in order to create that closed loop system, that extra solution has to go somewhere. It goes to one of our ponds after it's been neutralized with lime. All right. So probably the thing that most people on this call are interested in is our commercial facilities construction, our construction program. That has certainly kept us very busy at Florence Copper. And I'm really excited to say that the construction of our commercial, there's really been two components to this commercial construction program. One is we've built a larger plant and facilities to plate copper in. And the second is we have expanded and drilled additional wells in our well field. And so I'm incredibly excited to say that we are finalizing both of those activities. And we're really with kind of the most publicly available numbers that we've shared as of the end of June 2025. The project was on schedule, over 90% complete. And we are really growing as an operation as well. I can tell you that in January of 2023, we had about 35 direct employees. We're now up to over 110. And we expect to hire 60 plus more people just this year in 2025. So if you know anyone looking for a job in the mining industry, please send them our way. We are definitely hiring. And I'm very proud to say that we have been really keeping it local with our hiring. We've been able to find some great local talent here in Arizona, and including from Pinal County. The majority of folks that we've hired in our major ramp up have been local Pinal County residents. So we will be having and actually putting out some information later today about a local job fair that we'll be hosting in the Gold Canyon community here in Pinal County. So if you do know anyone who's looking for a job or want to come meet with our team, we will be putting out more information on our social media later today. And just kind of speaking to how things have changed at Florence Copper, the left-hand side of our screen is a photo of what our site looked like in March 2024. And you can see a photo in July 2025 on the right-hand side. And so that is kind of speaking to our SXEW planning and associated infrastructure, how we've really grown our operation. At the same time, when you actually drive by our site, not much has really changed. This is kind of some view simulations that we've put together of what this will look like later on in commercial operations. And so this is just kind of driving down Hunt Highway along the side of our site. And we'll be adding additional trees and native seed with a native seed mix, but really it's not going to be a huge visual change for the community. And our well field, you can't see the wells, I mean, from the road. So it's interesting to kind of see. I still have people to this day tell me, yeah, you do everything there at Florence Copper? Like you don't have facilities somewhere else? Like there's always that confusion because it doesn't look like what people traditionally think of when they think of a mining operation. And then just ending out this presentation to highlight a bit of our socioeconomic impact to the area and to our state. So the W.P. Carey School of Business has the L. William Seidman Research Institute at Arizona State University, and they actually put together an economic and fiscal impact study on Florence Copper. And that impact study found that we will contribute about $4.3 billion in economic activity to the state of Arizona over the course of our project. That includes 2.5 billion just concentrated in our local county, Pinal County. And then, Florence is a rather small town, and so we're very proud to be contributing over 115 million in just tax revenues to the town of Florence over the course of our operation. And then we do really prioritize and are very committed to hiring local procurement. I did mention kind of our local ramp up of hiring, but over the course of our operation, we'll support an annual average of 819 direct, indirect, and induced jobs in the state of Arizona. And we are very much, we treasure our partnerships with our local businesses and local suppliers. And that's something that we very much look forward to continuing those partnerships during commercial operations. And then finally, ending out, this is probably my favorite portion of the presentation because this is specifically my position at Florence Copper. And it really is that we prioritize and deeply are committed to supporting our local community. So we do have a charitable foundation that is composed of a board that has both representatives from the local community and also from our company. And since 2013, we've awarded $179,000 in grants to local nonprofits and initiatives. We also do have a scholarship program for local students, high school graduates in Florence and surrounding communities, and we've awarded over $109,000 since 2011. That included about 18,500 just this year alone, and so we're incredibly excited to see how that can continue to grow. And we do treasure our partnerships with our local municipalities, including the town of Florence. An example I would give is we recently donated $50,000 to help with renovations with one of our local playgrounds, specifically to add accessibility features with children with disabilities and special needs. The photo on the slide is actually a photo of the ribbon cutting for that event. And all of this is employee driven. So whether it be employee representation on our foundation board, an employee committee for our scholarship program, or employee volunteers, we would not be able to do it without them. And they really are enthusiastic. So for example, we have adopted the stretch of highway that runs along the side of our property. We do bi-yearly cleanups of that. And it's something that our employees really enjoy, spending time part of the workday to get out and give back to our community. And so to end out, I just want to thank you all so much for the privilege of your time. And I always like to emphasize as a local resident, all of these benefits that Florence Copper has brought to our community have been done before we've reached commercial operations. So before we're even technically profitable as an operation. So I'm incredibly excited to see how we can grow our positive impact once we do reach that important milestone and move into commercial operations. So with that, again, I thank you so much for the privilege of your time. And I saw the chat going off a bit. So if there's any questions, I would be very happy to take them.
Right now, we've got one question, and it's actually from Marissa. How will groundwater be protected from contamination during and after the operation?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic question. So as I mentioned, as part of the in situ copper recovery process, we are pulling out slightly more of that liquid copper rich solution than we are putting in. That creates that what we call that cone of depression and that hydraulic control, basically that closed loop system that ensures that we always have 100% control of where that liquid copper rich solution is going within our ore body. And so that is kind of the first layer, if you will, of protection. And that is monitored by those injection and recovery wells. We have those monitors right on those wells. But then, of course, we also do have kind of our second layer of protection, which are our point of compliance or our observation wells. And so those allow us to sample. And so at the beginning of our operation, we always sample all of like those baseline conditions to ensure that we are monitoring the different, those different markers in our system. And so with that, we're able to sample groundwater quality at every level, ensure that the process is working correctly with those observation wells, and then those point of compliance wells also with that data going directly to regulators. And the amazing thing about our operation is all of this is monitored 24/7 in real time. We have a control room on our site. There's always people in that control room monitoring, taking data, ensuring that we keep that closed loop system in place. So it's a very, very robust system. And upon closure of our operations, we're actually able to basically rinse our well field with fresh water, bring it back to baseline conditions. And so there will be a closure period to our site as well that ensures that we bring it back. And I always like to emphasize overall, kind of for folks who are, interested in kind of learning how that kind of bringing back to baseline conditions happens, that was proven actually with the BHP pilot test on our site in the 1990s. So there's really been in situ copper recovery activity on our site since then. So, over 2 decades now, and have never shown any impacts to water quality. But fantastic question. Thank you. See the chat is maybe potentially some additional questions. I apologize. I can't see the chat.
You're totally fine. The next question is from an anonymous attendee, and it says, do you do site tours? And if so, can I join one?
That's a fantastic question. So the answer is normally yes. So we actually have had over 3,300 people tour our site over the course of our operations. We have a very robust site tour program. Because we are under construction currently, ramping up into commercial operations, we've just held off on tours for the general public at this point in time, just because we don't want people wandering through an active construction commissioning site. But we are in discussions about ramping up tours kind of once we have our, ribbon cutting on our commercial facilities, once we're back up into commercial operations. And I will put it out there that on our website, there is actually a way to sign up for our newsletter. If you go to our homepage and scroll all the way down, we have a newsletter that provides project updates, and that will provide information about tours. It'll also be on our website. And I do want to put a shout out because the Women in Mining conference is coming to Arizona next year, and I'm in discussions with the team at Women in Mining about potentially doing a group tour for Florence Copper as well. So stay tuned.
I was going to add that if you didn't mention it.
Yes, I was getting there. Yeah, I want to provide all the options, but yes, no, we're very excited. Actually, you probably will be our first big group tour since moving into commercial operations. So very excited to have you out to our site. Our general manager was thrilled when he heard that the Women in Mining wanted to come out and take a tour. So
nice.
Appreciate that. Our next question is from Erica Arvisu. Erica, if I said your last name wrong, forgive me. What is the long-term strategy for rinsing and restoring the aquifer and site to its pre-mining condition?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic question. So as I mentioned, we will be producing copper for approximately 22 years. We then will, I guess it's twofold in the sense that the interesting part about our site is we don't develop our well field all in one fell swoop. So we basically have what we call a year -1 well field block. And that is the first kind of well field block that we start producing from. And each well field block is about 500 feet by 500 feet in size. And as we go over the course of our operation, we basically drill additional wells and drill additional blocks. And so we have our year -1 well field block, year 1, year 2, and so on and so forth. And so each well field block, it takes about 8 years to fully produce the copper from that block. And then we actually are able to, as we move in a grid-like pattern across our site, have today's injection wells become tomorrow's recovery wells, move in that grid-like pattern, and slowly but surely start to actually rinse different blocks of the well field and close out different blocks of the well field as we expand over the whole well field site. And so with that, we're able to basically do concurrent reclamation in the sense that when we hit year 22, we've got, for instance, our year -1 well field block all closed out. Once we hit that year 22, we will have a several year closure period on our site where we will basically rinse the well field with fresh water, bring everything back to baseline conditions. There's a resting period to prove that we've brought it to baseline conditions. And then at that point in time, we're able to really close out the site and then speak with the, kind of the communities and speak with our partners to see, what is the best usage for that site. Because as I mentioned, it really is something that, the site is going to look basically how it was when we started. And so I always kind of, jokingly, we a lot of people jokingly throw out what they want our site to be. One of our local battalion chiefs at our fire department says he wants it to be a little league stadium. So obviously some conversations to have in the future, but a very, robust closure plan.
Okay, that was our last question, unless there's anybody else that has anything. So I'm going to turn it over to Marissa. But thank you, Sophie.
Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to share more about Florence Copper. And this is such a wonderful group. So incredibly honored to be asked.
Okay, I'm gonna take the screen back here. And again, big thank you, huge shout out to Sophie for taking the time and presenting today. This was very interesting and very informative. Also, to share with you, if you're interested in joining the Women in Mining Arizona or serve on one of our subcommittees, we have 8 of them, so we're more than happy to accept new attendees. But our information there is on the screen. So if you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or we have our website. So there's lots of different ways for you guys to get in touch with us to join the Women in Mining group here. So I also wanted to mention that we are going to be doing a whole new DigIN presentation next month, and this is the first of our series. It's the mining innovation in the copper state. So the Florence Copper was kicked off our new series that we're going to be doing. Really excited about it. It was fantastic to have all of you with us, and we hope that you found the session as engaging and insightful as I did. Each month, we're going to be bringing you some exciting lunch and learns featuring one of our local mines, and we'll be focusing on one of their unique aspects that they do during their operation. So we have a pretty good lineup for you. More to come. We haven't tied in next month, but we will have that information out soon. So we really look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Did you turn off the